Hello guys, and welcome to another sewing tutorial. My name is Ihuoma Judith, and today I'll be showing you how to make this trending gather dress with a shoulder drawstring and a Basque waistline. And I'm also going to show you how to ensure that there's no zipper bulge at the back of your dress. So I made use of 5 yards of fabric, an African print, because this is a long dress. So if this is something you're interested in and you would love to know how to make, then let's get right into the video. So firstly, I'm going to go ahead and draw a straight line. So from the top of my pattern paper, I went down by 1 inch and I went ahead to draw a straight line. So this is going to be my starting line or my shoulder line, okay? So now the next measurement I'll be taking is my shoulder to bust measurement. So from my starting line, I went down to 10.25 inches, which is my bust point, and I went ahead to mark that across my paper like this, and with my ruler, I went ahead to draw a straight line. So this line will be called my bust line. So the next measurement I'll be taking is my shoulder to under bust measurement. So from my starting line, I went down to 10.75 inches, which is my under bust measurement, and I went ahead to mark that across my pattern paper like this, and with my ruler, I went ahead to draw a straight line. So this is my under bust line measurement. So the next measurement now I'll be taking is my shoulder to waist measurement. So from my starting line, I went down to 18 inches, which is my shoulder to waist measurement, and I went ahead to mark that across my paper like this, and with my ruler, I went ahead to draw a straight line. So this line will be called the waistline. So from my waistline, I went down to 6 inches, and I marked that across my pattern paper like this, and with my ruler, I went ahead to connect the marks together, drawing a straight line. So I added extra 6 inches because I want to extend the length of my bodice, okay? And I'm also going to be calling this my hip line, all right? So I went ahead to label the line so that we'll not get confused. Okay, so now that we are done, on the starting line, we are going to go ahead to take our neckline measurement. So from that center front of my starting line, I went in by 3.5 inches, which is going to be the width of my neckline, okay? And I marked. So the next measurement I'll be taking is my shoulder measurement. So from the starting line on that center front, I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So my shoulder measurement is 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches, and I went ahead to mark 8 inches, okay? So from that, my shoulder mark of 8 inches, I'm going to determine how long I want my sleeve to be. So I want mine to be about 13 inches. So I went ahead to extend my tape to 13 inches, as you can see, and I marked, okay? So on that, my 13 inches mark, I still went down from that starting line by 1 inches. So I'm going to connect that mark to my neckline of that 3.5 inches. I hope you're following. So I'll go ahead with my ruler and connect the marks together, creating a shoulder slope like this, okay? After that, I just went ahead to just extend my other vertical line so that we can work with them properly, okay? So now the next thing I'm going to do is on that my shoulder slope of that 13 inches mark, I'm going to go ahead to connect a straight line to meet the bust line like this, okay? So that is how wide I want my sleeve opening to be. So when I measured my sleeve opening, I got about 9.5 inches, which is perfect for me. So you can make yours longer than that, okay? So now the next thing I'm going to do is on the starting line from the center front, I'm going to measure down to my sleeve length, and I got a total of 21 inches, okay? So I'm going to be minusing 3 inches from that 21 inches, and I got about 18 inches. So I went down to my under bust line from the center front, and I measured 18 inches and marked. So now the next thing we are going to do is to create our armhole curve. So from my sleeve opening, I'm going to go ahead and create a curve to meet that 18 inches mark under my under bust line, okay? So you can go ahead and use your armhole curve, or you can go ahead and use your free hand. So if you have been following my videos, you can see that sometimes I use my free hand in curving my armhole, okay? So now that we are done, the next measurement we'll be taking is on our under bust line. So I'm going to be taking my under bust round measurement divided by 4. Mine is 33 inches divided by 4 is 8.25. So I went ahead to mark 8.25 like this, okay? So after that, the next measurement we'll be taking is on our waistline. So on our waistline, we're going to go ahead and take our waist round measurement divided by 4. Mine is 32 inches divided by 4 is 8 inches, and I went ahead to mark 8 inches, okay? So now the next measurement also will be taken is on our hip line. So on that hip line, we're going to take our round hip measurement divided by 4. Mine is 44 inches divided by 4 is 11 inches, and I went ahead to mark at that 11 inches, okay? So I also went ahead to use my curve rule to connect the marks together, creating my body shape, okay? So you can make use of your curve rules if you have, or you can go ahead and use your free hand, okay? So now that we are done, we are going to go ahead to create our neck depth. Remember, the width of our neckline is about 3.5 inches, as you can see. So we are going to be creating our neck depth for the back and the front piece, okay? So for my front piece, I'm going to extend the line down to my under bust line. So that is how long I want my front neckline depth to be. So from that, my neckline width of 3.5 inches, I went ahead to create a slanted line meeting my under bust line like this, creating this V shape, okay? So this is going to be for my front neckline. While for the back neckline, I'm going to be using the length of my bust line for the neck depth, okay? So So from that neckline width of 3.5 inches, I went ahead to draw a slanted line to meet the bust line like this, okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and label it so that we'll not get confused. So this is my front neckline, FN, and this is my back neckline, BN, okay? So remember, they are using the same neck width but different neck depth, okay? So this dress is going to be having 3 parts, but I went ahead to draft out the 2 parts first. So I'm just labeling it for us. This is the part 1 of the dress and this is the part 2 of the dress, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and cut through that my under bust line, separating the part 1 from the part 2 like this, okay? But before I continue cutting, I'm going to go ahead to add my shoulder allowance on that my shoulder slope, okay? So on my shoulder slope, I went up by 1 inches straight down, and I did that till I meet my neckline, okay? And after that, I went ahead with my ruler to connect the marks together. So this is going to be for my sewing allowance on the shoulder slope, okay? So I also went ahead to extend my sleeve opening to meet that my shoulder sewing allowance, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead now to finish up my cutting, okay? So I went ahead to cut out my armhole, the sleeve opening like this, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and cut through my hip line like this and the shape of my bodice like this, following my mark, okay? So now that we are done separating the both parts of our bodice, let's make some adjustments on the part 1. So we are going to go ahead to cut out the back neckline first, that is the BN. Then we're going to go ahead now and cut out the shoulder allowance of 1 inch. That is that mark that we went up by 1 inches, okay? So we are going to be using that to cut out the back piece on our fabric before we go ahead to cut out the front neckline. Remember that we're using this pattern to cut out both our back and our front piece, okay? Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 like this, and I went ahead to place my pattern paper on it. So from my starting line down to my bust line, I added half an inch sewing allowance. Then from that my bust line down to my under bust line, I added 2 inches for my zipper allowance, okay? So just follow what I'm doing here. So on that my under bust line, I also added half an inch for stitching allowance, and also on the armhole curve, half an inch stitching allowance. So that is the only places where we are going to be adding our allowance, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and cut through those lines that I've marked, okay? Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric following those lines that I marked. So I'm just going to go ahead now and remove my pattern paper from my fabric like this, okay? So I also went ahead to just open up that my zipper allowance line, okay? And we are going to be having 2 pieces like this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead now and keep this my fabric aside so that we can cut out the front piece. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to bring back this my pattern paper, which is the part 1. So we're going to be using this to cut out the front piece of our dress, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead like this and cut out the neckline for the front piece, which is the FN like this, okay? Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 like this, and I also went ahead to place my pattern on it. So on the front piece here, I added half an inch sewing allowance on the neckline straight down. I also added half an inch on the under bust line and also on the armhole line. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the fabric following the lines like this, okay? So this is what you should be getting after cutting, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead now and remove my pattern from my fabric so that you can see what it looks like, okay? Okay guys, so this is what you should be getting after cutting, and as you can see, our fabric is in 2. So I'm going to just go ahead and just keep this aside so that we can work on the part 2 of our pattern paper, okay? So for the part 2 of my pattern, I want to go ahead and give it some curve before I go ahead and cut it out on my fabric, okay? So from the side of my pattern paper, I'm going to be going up by 3 inches from the waistline like this and mark. And I'm going to connect that mark down to the center front of my pattern paper like this, okay? So I'm going to use my curve rule like this and connect it like this, creating this curved shape, okay? So you can use any curve you want. You can go as high as you want, all right? So I'm going to go ahead now and cut it out, giving me this shape. So I'll be using this shape to cut out on my fabric. So we are going to be cutting out the front side of our dress first. So I went ahead to fold my fabric into 2 first before placing my pattern on it. And as you can see, I added half an inch on the upper side of my pattern paper, which is the under bust line. And on the side of my pattern paper, I added 2 inches for my stitching allowance, okay? So you can determine any amount you want. While on the hip line, I also added half an inch on it, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead now and cut through these lines following the pattern. So after cutting, you should be getting something like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and separate my pattern paper from my fabric so that you can see what it looks like. So this is what you should be getting. This is what it looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead now and keep this aside so that we can cut out the back piece, okay? But firstly, we are going to be working on this pattern because we want to be removing any zipper bulge on our dress because we want our zip to lay properly on our dress. So on our waistline, I'm going to be going up from the waistline by 0.75 inches and I'll mark. While on the waistline still, I'm going to still go down by 0.75 inches and mark. If you're on a slimmer size, you can go by about ½ inch on both sides of the waistline like this, okay? So after that, now I'm going to go ahead and connect this line to the waistline on the side of our dress. All right, and I'll do that on the both marks. Okay, so after that, the next thing I'm going to do is on that waistline still, I'm going to be going in from the center front by about 0.75 inches. So like I said, if you're on a slimmer size, you can still go in by half an inch. All right, so on the top of my pattern paper, which is that under bust, I'm going to just go in by about quarter of an inch, just quarter of an inch. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead now and connect that 0.75 inches that I went in on my waistline straight down to the hip line like this. And I'm also going to still connect that mark on my waistline to that quarter of an inch that I went up by on the under bust line. That is the top of my fabric like this, creating a curve. Okay, so if you're done, you should be getting something like this. So now the next thing I'm going to do is with my scissors, I'm just going to go ahead and cut through those lines that we went in by on the waistline. So that's 0.75 inches that I went in on the both side of my waistline. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out like this. Okay, so after I was done cutting it out, I went ahead to join the remaining patterns together like this. Okay, so you can just slash through the opening completely like this before going ahead to join the patterns together. So I'm just going to go ahead to use my marking tape to place them together. Make sure your patterns are meeting each other on the sides and not on top of each other. Okay, so carefully place them together like this and use your masking tape to hold them together. Okay, so I've gone ahead to hold them together like this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut through this other line. Okay, so after that, this is what you should be getting. So this method is going to help eliminate any zipper bulge. Okay, so I've gone ahead to place my pattern on my fabric like this, and I also folded my fabric into two before placing my pattern on it. So I also went ahead to mark out my stitching allowance. On the under bust line, I added half an inch sewing allowance. On my zipper line, I added about 1.5 inches stitching allowance. On the hip line, I added half an inch sewing allowance, and on the side I added 2 inches stitching allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut through those lines. Okay guys, so after cutting through those lines, this is what you should be getting, and as you can see, our back piece is into two. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep this aside. Okay guys, so I went ahead to just bring back the part one of the back piece of my dress. Remember, on the pattern, this is how the part one is looking like. So I want to make some tiny adjustment. So on the zipper side, I went in by that quarter of an inch, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it straight down to the top of our zipper line like this. So this is to just ensure that our zipper is properly balanced at the back of our dress. And I'm going to go ahead with my scissors and cut out the line, and you'll be getting something like this. I'm just going to bring the other back piece and place it so that you can see what we are working with. Okay, so as you can see, the zipper is now slanted. That is because our back is not straight. All right, so I'm now just going to go ahead and remove my pattern paper from my fabric, and I'll keep this aside. Okay guys, so for the back piece, for this part one, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out a turnover for the neckline. So I went ahead to bring a piece of my fabric like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold it into two like this. Okay, so after folding it into two, you're just going to go ahead and place the back piece neckline on the fabric like this, and you're going to just go ahead and measure out the shoulder line of about 2.5 inches. That is how wide I want my turnover fabric to be. Okay, so 2.5 inches is okay for me. So I'm just going to go ahead now and trace out the neckline down to the zipper line on my fabric. Okay, I also went ahead to trim down the downside of my turnover so that it will be the same length with my back piece, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead now and remove my back piece so that we can properly work on the turnover fabric. Okay, so on the downside of my turnover fabric, I'm going to measure out 2.5 inches. Like I said, that is how wide I want my turnover fabric to be, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it to the top of the turnover fabric like this. Remember, the up and down is about 2.5 inches. So if you measure it out, you're going to be getting a slanted line like this, and with my scissors, I'm going to go ahead and cut through it. Okay, so with that, we have gotten the two piece for our turnover fabric, which will be for the left and the right piece. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and place the turnover fabric on the neckline of the back piece. Okay, so right side facing the right side, I'm going to go ahead and pick one of the turnover fabric like this and place it on the neckline of my back piece like this, and I'll go ahead and sew on the neckline straight down to that zipper line. So it's going to be like an L shape. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew it down by half an inch. So I'm going to repeat the same process on the both necklines of my back piece. So I also went ahead to cut out a turnover fabric for my front piece. So I used the same method the way I use in cutting the turnover fabric for our back neckline. Okay, and the width of my turnover is also 2.5 inches. So now we have cut out our two turnover for the neckline of our front piece. So like we did earlier, right side facing the right side, I'm going to go ahead and pick one turnover like this and place it on the neckline of my front piece like this, and I'm going to go ahead and sew straight down by half an inch on that neckline. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other piece. Okay guys, so So for the back piece, I've gone ahead to sew straight down the neckline and that zipper line by 1/2 inch, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead with my scissors and create tiny notches on that joining, okay? So make sure that your scissors does not cut through the thread. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just open up my turnover fabric like this, making sure that that joining allowance of that 1/2 inch is facing the turnover fabric like this. So I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and stitch on that turnover fabric close to the joining line. I hope you understand what I'm doing. So just go ahead and stitch it down. This is going to just help relax the neckline, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other neckline. So I'll create some tiny notches on the neckline like this, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my turnover fabric like this, making sure that the 1/2 inch joining allowance is facing the turnover fabric. And I'll go ahead and sew straight down the neckline to the zipper line on the turnover fabric like this, close to that joining line, okay? So on the front piece, we have also joined the turnover fabric to the neckline, as you can see, by 1/2 inch. So we are just going to go ahead and just create tiny notches on that 1/2 inch joining on the neckline like this. And you're just going to go ahead and open up your turnover fabric like this, making sure that that 1/2 inch joining is facing the turnover fabric like this. And you're going to go ahead and sew straight down on that turnover fabric close to the joining line, okay? So basically what we did on our back neckline is what we are going to still repeat on the front neckline. So if you're familiar with my videos, you will know that this is the usual process I like doing on the neckline to help relax the neckline. So I'm also going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other neckline of my front piece, okay? Okay guys, so after stitching on the turnover fabric, this is what you should be getting. So if you flip over your front piece to the wrong side, and you can see that that 1/2 inch joining allowance is facing the turnover fabric, and that is how the other neckline of the front piece should be looking like, okay? So now I'm just going to go ahead and flip over my turnover fabric to the wrong side like this, and as you can see, this is how relaxed it is. We have not even ironed it and it's already relaxed. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to just add a hemming gum on the neckline to keep it in place, okay? So you just open up your turnover fabric like this, and you place your hemming gum on the wrong side of the neckline like this, and with your turnover fabric, you go ahead and cover it. So you're going to go ahead and iron it down, and this is going to help hold the turnover fabric to the neckline, keeping it neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other neckline like this, okay? So go ahead and do the same for yours. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to add my hemming gum to the neckline, as you can see, and this is how relaxed my neckline is looking like on the front piece. So now the next thing I'm going to do is from the neckline on that under bust line, I'm going to go in by 3 inches and mark on any of the front piece, okay? So I'm going to pick the other front piece like this and place it under my 3 inches mark that I gave, and I'm going to go ahead and pin it down, okay? So after pinning the both piece together, I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew on that under bust line a loose stitch straight down. Okay guys, so this is the part 2 of my front piece, and I also went ahead to add a stay to give it more structure. I also went ahead to cut out a matching lining, as you can see. So what we are going to do is I'm going to place my lining on the wrong side of my fabric like this, and I went ahead to pin it down together to hold it in place. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew all around the fabric like this, holding the lining to the main fabric like this, and also cut off any excess on the lining piece. Okay guys, so on the neckline of my back piece, I also went ahead to stitch on the turnover fabric like this, making sure that that 1/2 inch joining is facing the turnover fabric, okay? So now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to close the zipper line. So I'll just flip my turnover fabric to the right side of my main fabric like this. So right side facing the right side, I'm going to go ahead and sew on that zipper line by 1/2 inch like this. And I'll go ahead and repeat the same process on the other back piece. Okay guys, so this is what you should be getting after stitching down the zipper line. So I'm just going to trim off the excess stitching allowance on the top like this, and I'll go ahead and flip over my turnover fabric to the wrong side of my fabric like this. And after that, this is what you should be getting. So as you can see, the zipper line is closed. So the next thing we are going to do is to go ahead and add our hemming gum on the neckline, okay? So I went ahead to open my turnover fabric like this, and I'll go ahead and place my hemming gum inside the neckline like this, and cover it up with my turnover fabric like this. Very simple. So I'm just going to go ahead now and iron it down, keeping the neckline in place. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other neckline of my back piece. Okay guys, so this is the part 2 of my back piece. I also went ahead to indicate where my zipper will be, and I also added a stay to my fabric to give it more strength, and I also went ahead to cut out the lining piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and place my lining on the zipper line on the right side of my fabric like this, and I'm going to go ahead and sew straight down by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to do that on the both zipper line of my fabric piece. Okay guys, so this is it after stitching it. So you just flip over the lining to the wrong side of your fabric like this. I don't know, I couldn't find the complete clip, but just flip your lining piece to the wrong side of your fabric like this, and you're going to go ahead and sew all around your fabric, holding your lining piece to your main fabric. And as you can see on the zipper line, there's no rough edges showing on it, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other fabric piece. Okay guys, so as you can see, I've gone ahead to add my hemming gum on the both neckline of my back piece. And if I flip over my fabric to the right side, this is what it will be looking like, very neat and clean. I also went ahead to sew a loose stitch on the under bust line on the both fabric like this. So we're going to be using this stitching to create gathers, okay? So like I always do, I'll just go ahead and loosen up the thread on the side of my stitching like this about 1 or 2 times, and I'll just go ahead and pick one of the threads and pull gently, creating my gathers. Okay, so to know the length of the gathers that we'll be creating, so I went ahead to bring the part 2 of my back piece like this, and we're going to go ahead and measure the under bust line. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to also stitch down the lining to my main fabric all around like this. So now I'm just going to go ahead and measure out the under bust line. So when I measured it, I got about 11 inches on the both fabric. So I'm going to be creating my gathers to be 11 inches. Okay, so the back piece gathers will be 11 inches. Okay guys, so I'm done creating my gathers on the part 1 of my back piece, and I measured it out, and as you can see, I got about 11 inches, which is what we are working with. So right side facing the right side, we are going to be joining the both fabrics together. So make sure that the both zipper lines are aligning together like this, and you're going to go ahead and sew straight down on that under bust line by about 1/2 inch. So you can go ahead and pin it down to help you hold the both fabrics together, then go ahead and sew straight down on that under bust line by 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and also repeat the same process on the other back piece too. Okay guys, like we did on the back piece, I went ahead to sew a straight line on that under bust line, as you can see. So we're going to be using that to create our gather stitch. So we're going to go on the side and loosen up the thread by about 2 or 3 times like this, and we're going to go ahead and pick one of the thread and pull gently, creating our gathers. So I'm going to do that on the both side, creating our gathers. So to know the length of the gathers we're going to be using, I'm going to bring the part 2 of my front piece like this, and we're going to measure out the under bust line. And as you can see, I've sewed down my lining to my main fabric like this. So when I measured the under bust line, I got about 20.5 inches. So I'll be making my gathers to be that length, okay? So guys, I've gone ahead to create my gathers, and as you can see, it's about 20.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and place the both fabrics together, right side facing the right side. We're going to go ahead and sew straight down on that under bust line by 1/2 inch. So you can also go ahead and pin the both fabrics together to help you hold the both fabrics together, and you're going to go ahead and sew straight down on the under bust line. Okay guys, as you can see, I've joined down the both fabric on the other bust line, and this is what you should be getting. So now the next thing we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and place the both back piece together like this, right side facing the right side. So we are going to go ahead and sew on that zipper line, joining the both fabrics together. So we are going to be using our zipper line allowance. Remember, we gave an allowance of 1.5 inches, but since we used 1/2 inch to hide the rough edges at the zipper allowance, we're going to remove 1/2 inch from our zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. So I'll be making use of 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 inches from the waist straight down, and I'll go to my sewing machine and sew along those lines. Okay guys, so for the front piece, I also went ahead to join the both fabrics on the under bust line like this by 1/2 inch, and this is what you should be getting. So now the next thing we are going to do is to just go ahead and fold the sleeve of our dress. So you just go ahead and fold over the sleeve. I'm using 1.5 inches, so I'll go ahead and fold my sleeve by 1.5 inches like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold the other end by 1/2 inch and sew straight down on it. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other sleeve. Okay guys, for the back piece, I've gone ahead to join the both fabric together on the zipper allowance. So now the next thing we are also going to do is to just go ahead and fold down the sleeve like we did on our front piece. So I used 1.5 inches for my front piece. I'm also going to go ahead and fold down the both sleeve of my back piece by that 1.5 inches. Okay, very simple. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to fold down the both sleeve of my front piece, as you can see, and I also went ahead to fold down the both sleeve of my back piece like this. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to just go ahead and join the 2 pieces together on the shoulder line. Okay, so you go ahead and place the both fabrics together, right side facing the right side like this, on the shoulder line like this, and you're going to go ahead and sew straight down by 1 inch, and you're going to do that on the both shoulder lines. Okay, so this is it after joining it together. As you can see, I sewed it down by 1 inch on the both shoulder line. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and open up my fabric like this. So on the wrong side of my fabric, on that shoulder line, I'm going to go ahead and open up that shoulder stitching allowance like this, and on the both ends of the stitching allowance, I'm still going to go ahead and fold it in by 1/4 inch like this and sew straight down on it. So I'm going to do that on the both shoulder lines like this, folding the both ends of that shoulder allowance by 1/4 inch and sew straight down on it. And I'm going to be doing that on the both shoulder lines. So this is going to be where we are going to be fixing our ropes. Okay guys, so this is it after folding in that shoulder allowance by 1/4 inch, and this is what the front is also looking like. So I also went ahead to fold in my rope. So by now you should know how to create your rope. So we are going to be using this to insert through these holes we created on our shoulder line. Okay, so I went ahead to fix in my safety pin on one end of the rope. So I'll be using that safety pin to pass my rope through the hole. So pass your rope from any of the opening on the downside, that is the sleeve side of our dress, and you're going to go ahead and pull out your rope with the help of that your safety pin to the other end of the opening. Okay, so this is it after pulling it out. So now you're going to go ahead and pass your rope to the other opening on the shoulder line like this, and you're going to go ahead and pull it out till you bring it out to the downside, that's the sleeve side, and you're going to be getting something like this. Okay, so as you can see, we have fixed our shoulder drawstring. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other shoulder line. Okay, so this is what I got after fixing my ropes on my shoulder opening like this. So make sure you create a long rope like I did. This is going to help fit through the openings and also have more excess out. Okay, so now the next thing we are going to do is to go ahead and join the both pieces together on the side, right side facing the right side. So from my sleeve opening, I'm going to go ahead and mark down my stitching allowance. Remember, I gave a stitching allowance of 2 inches on the side, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark out 2 inches straight down on both sides like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew straight down those lines on my sewing machine. Okay guys, I've gone ahead to sew down the sides of my dress, and this is how it's going to be looking like. So I'm just going to turn over the fabric to the right side so that you can see what it looks like. So this is it on the right side, looking all neat and clean. So before we are going to open up the zipper line, I'm just going to measure out the full length of my bodice. So from my shoulder line down to the shortest part of my curve, as you can see, I got 21 inches. So take your measurement from your shoulder line to the shortest part of your curve. Okay, so this is going to help determine how long our gathers, that is the downside of our dress, is going to be. Okay guys, I've gone ahead to loose down that my stitching on the zipper allowance, and this is what I'm getting. So now I'm just going to go ahead and measure out the full length of my underbust line. So from one end of my zipper line to the other end, I got about 42 inches. So I'll be using this to create my gathers. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to cut out the fabric I'll be using for the down part of my dress. That is the part 3. Remember that this dress is having 3 parts. Okay, so the width of this fabric is about 3 yards, while the length is 38 inches. So how to know the length you'll be cutting out? You just minus what you got on the full length of your bodice from your actual full length of your dress, and add extra 2 inches for both your joining and folding allowance. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to fold down the hem of my dress, and this is what it's looking like. I also went ahead to sew a loose stitch straight down the top of my fabric. So as usual, we're going to go ahead to create our gathers. So you go ahead and loosen up the thread about 2 to 3 times like we usually do. Pick out one thread and you go ahead and draw the thread slightly, creating your gathers. Okay, so I'll do that on the both side of my fabric, and I'm going to make sure that the length is about 42 inches like we measured on the underbust line of our bodice. Okay guys, as you can see, I'm done creating my gathers on my fabric. So now we're going to go ahead and join it on our bodice. Okay, so we're going to place it like this, right side facing the right side. Follow exactly the way I'm placing it like this, and pin down the gathers fabric on the main bodice like this on that underbust line, and go ahead and sew straight down by 1/2 inch on that underbust line. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to join the both fabrics together on that underbust line by 1/2 inch. So you're just going to go ahead and open up your fabric like this or your dress like this. So now the next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and join the zipper. Okay, so we are going to just go ahead and bring the both ends together like this, which is the zipper line, and we are going to go ahead and mark out how long we want our zip to be. Okay, so right side facing the right side like this, bring your zipper and measure how long you want your zipper to be. So I want mine to be about this length here, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark it out to indicate it, and I'll go ahead and sew straight down. Then go ahead and fix my zipper with that zipper allowance of 1 inch. Okay guys, so I've gone ahead to fix my zip and my dress is complete. So I'm just going to go ahead and weave down the rough edges. Okay, and I'll go ahead and iron it down and put it on, and you can see what it looks like on me. Okay guys, so this is what the dress looks like on me, looking very cute and neat. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I hope you love this tutorial. Please like, comment and subscribe, and if you're a subscriber, thank you, and I do hope to see you in my next video. Until next time, bye bye.